Okay, so welcome. Today we are doing 5 things you do not need to start your practice. So if you're brand new to practice or you've been a long time doc or practitioner and now you're switching over to functional medicine, this is going to be great. For those of you that have already been doing your functional medicine practice, but maybe it hasn't gone exactly the way you want it to, it's still going to be very good because you can go back and see like, okay, I handled that, check that off the list, but maybe I need a little bit more attention here. And I know there's a few of you that might just be hopping on for general business advice, and that's okay. I love talking about business, so you're all in the right place. All right, quick little disclaimer, just this is a free online class. I always do my best to make sure every piece of information I'm bringing you is accurate and current and fact-checked, but always do your own due diligence, especially we're mostly talking business stuff today, but I do a lot of clinical classes also and endeavor to bring best clinical practices, most current research, but of course you have to always make your own clinical decisions, especially with that patient right in front of you, right? Okay, so let's, very brief intro to me, and then we're diving in. I'm still letting people in, so it's nice to see so many of you on a Friday afternoon, or Friday night for some of you. So this is just a snapshot. It's just easier for me to throw it all on one page. So I'm Dr. Zachary. Most people call me Dr. Z, and Body Love Cafe is our clinic. We're in our 6th year. We're actually going through a whole big rebrand now. But it's been very successful, grown. I was able to start it without any loans, been profitable from day one. I can tell you if you have questions, like different phases and things that happen. But part of my story is that I was injured. I know a lot of you got into functional medicine because you got sick yourself. I was injured, which then led to an illness. And I was declared permanently disabled. I'd never work again. I'd never be in healthcare again. I wouldn't be around kids. And I slept like 22 hours a day. I had to go to the hospital for IVIG every 3 weeks. And it was very expensive treatment, lots of meds, many specialists, none that would talk to each other. It was just really a shit time, to be honest. So that's how I found functional medicine for myself, and then reactivated my license to be able to draw my own blood labs. I'm a DC, so I went back to school to learn more functional medicine and then dove into practice. So when I started practice, it was really scary. If any of you can relate to this, I was on Social Security at the time, so I mean, that's nothing, like it's pennies, right? And I signed a $700 a month lease for 6 months, and I was terrified. I was a single mom. I was like, what am I doing? But, and I'm going to talk about this later, I had nothing to lose and I had everything to lose, right? There was no safety net. And sometimes that's a good thing. So I just had to make it work. By the way, it was all cash based. I had really low prices to start with, very low volume. When I started, like just even making a couple thousand that first month was sort of life changing, considering where I was coming from. And then within 6 months, which is why when I do a mentorship, I make it 6 months. Within 6 months, it was about 10 to 15,000 per month. And that was like the first big growth that happened. And then the next 6 months, it grew again. So I had to move offices twice in the first year. I went from like this tiny little room just with me to an office that was as big as my house, 22 walls, multiple staff members. And I think I made somewhere around 250,000, all cash, doing functional medicine, 5 to 7 hours a week that first year. So that's my story. Of course, there's always a lot of other things that go on it, like your own healing journey. And then we were in California, so I actually sort of saw what was coming and took the clinic completely virtual even before California shut down. I mean, I wasn't that far in advance, like 10 days, but trust me, people thought I was nuts for doing that. I was like, I see what's happening here. And that was a lot to sort of keep a clinic running and then reinvent. I had like 1,500 patient files. I was at like a paper, old school clinic. and then I had to, get everything going. I see one's asking, was I doing any chiropractic at the time? I did do some chiropractic in the beginning, not too much, and it was a very, very small percentage of the earnings, like maybe 10%. But I had an old injury act up, and then it was like I wasn't going to be able to adjust anymore. So functional medicine's really my thing. I love chiropractic. I just can't do the physical parts, right? So I've been completely virtual for a while, and I've helped many other practitioners. We have practitioners on our team, and I love teaching, so I train physicians all around the world. You may have seen me train in other places, and if you're new, it's lovely to meet you. I'm going to dive in because I want to talk about the content, but if you have other questions for me, I'm happy to answer them later. So we're going to do a live Q&A at the end, and really any question, you're welcome. While you've got me, I'm yours. Okay, so let's get into this a bit. So for those who are starting, I want you to look at like what's holding you back. And maybe nothing, maybe you're just like roaring ahead, great. But for a lot of people, something holds them back, and these are the common concerns that I see. Time, like maybe they're already working another job, and this is a big switch for them, or maybe they have an existing clinic running, or family, kids, right? Real life stuff. So money, they're worried about money. Hopefully I'm going to be able to put any concerns about money at ease, because I have some good answers for you on that. And money could be like, are they going to make money, or do they have to spend a certain amount of money, or how are they going to ask patients for money and collect, all of those things. Fear of not knowing enough. Let me tell you, everyone worries about that. So I just want to make sure my phone's off, but I think I lost it anyway. Oh, here it is. Everyone worries about not knowing enough. Even like I have surgeons and ER docs I work with, and they worry about it too. I think that's a good sign. It means you care. You're going to do a good job. But don't worry, you're going to be fine. Some are overwhelmed with maybe all the clinical information. It might be quite different. Maybe they came from traditional medicine, so this is a really different approach, or just the business setup. So some of you may not have been exposed to business before, and this is a whole new world. That's my specialty. I'm a 5th generation female entrepreneur. So for better or worse, I was born and bred into it. Okay, for those who are already in practice, do you have any of these issues? This was something I asked in one of our IFM groups and did a poll, and this is what came up the most, and I would say it's pretty accurate for all the people that I work with. They're not just money, but they're struggling with money conversations. How do they talk to the patients about the cost of care or labs or supplements? Some are having trouble getting patients to follow protocols, so compliance, or they're not scheduling follow-ups. And some are overwhelmed, like analyzing all the labs, discussing functional medicine, not spending so many hours on the patient. So if any of those are you, you can put a little note in there, but otherwise I'm going to dive into our 5 things. And I said I ended up with 22, so I squished them into 5. So you'll start seeing a list. Before I do that though, first things first, I need you to give yourself permission to talk about business and money. Because I know a lot of you're either like, very generous, healing heart, and you just want to focus on getting people well, and you don't want to talk about, business and money, or you don't have a problem with that necessarily, but you come from maybe always being employed. And so this is sort of owning the business part is a new, odd concept for you that you might not be entirely ready for. So I want you to give yourself permission to talk about business and money. I want you to give me permission to share these ideas with you, and then know it's okay to actually care about business and money. Doesn't mean you're not a great healer, but it means you're smart enough to know that if you don't have good business practices and you're not earning enough to cover all the bills, pay your staff, and have good quality of life, right? You won't be able to go the distance, and you're not going to be a happy practitioner. So thumbs up. Everyone good with that? Okay, yay. So let's dive in. So the number one thing you do not need, and let me explain each of them because you're going to say, what? But the number one thing you do not need is an office, inventory, supplies, a license, staff, or payroll. So hopefully that got rid of a lot of initial expenses for you. And let me tell you what I mean. So for an office, obviously, you can do telemedicine or telehealth, and we can talk more about that. What does that look like? So some people like to be in person, great. There are some advantages. There's also going to be additional cost, and I'm happy to tell you a little bit about, so I'm just moving around so I can see y'all better, but I'm happy to tell you about what, some tips and tricks for what would be better practices for those of you that want to be in person. And then some have a hybrid, right? They do some in person and they do some online. So just know, especially for those of you starting, you don't have to rush out and get an office. Maybe imagine for yourself if you were doing telemedicine and you started building a successful practice, and what does that look like for you? 5,000 a month, 10,000, 15, 20, like what threshold do you have to get at that you're in your groove, things feel good, and then maybe you evaluate if you want an office or not. If you do feel like you want an office right away, then I would say consider renting a space, much lower cost, not having to handle all the overhead, smaller and shorter time investment, so you get to sort of test things. Okay, inventory. So if you're going to have supplements that you offer for patients, if you're going to maybe carry like durable medical equipment or other products, you might be tempted, and I know like some reps might say, hey, do this, spend 15,000, 30,000, 100,000 and stock up on this inventory. You definitely do not need to do that. In fact, and I've had this at all different phases, by the way. In fact, I really love it when people start, they don't buy any inventory at all. First of all, you get to save money and not have those expenses. It's so easy to drop ship. But then you're going to really train yourself to be in high integrity, because I know that's your intention anyway, but you're going to be in really high integrity that anytime you're going to recommend something for the patient, you're going to really be able to say, like, here's what you need, and not ever be thinking, oh my gosh, I have that supplement on the shelf and it's about to expire and maybe I need to move that. That's what happens when people have a retail store and then they have a sale and something that got left on the back of the shelf gets moved forward to the front, and we don't want to be like retail, right? We're working in healthcare. This is different. So we want to really only give and recommend what patients need, and being able to drop ship is an excellent way to do it. So if you want to know some more specifics about that, I can tell you, but very easy. And I can't tell you how many people who, before they taught to me, before I was, they were in the mentorship or was coaching them or whatever, they bought $15,000 or more worth of inventory. So it is not necessary at all. Okay, supplies. And you're like, what? You don't need any supplies. Let me explain what I mean by supplies. If you're in person, maybe you need a printer and some paper, things like that. If you're at home, maybe. Otherwise, just about everything's digital now. So as long as you're making sure your things are HIPAA compliant and you have a place to, download something as a PDF and save it securely, even the filing has become digital. And that's a great thing. Supplies for some of you that maybe have hands-on techniques. So I'm thinking of like my acupuncturists and my chiropractors and my physical therapists, maybe some of my osteopaths. If I'm leaving you out, my apologies. But those of you who have equipment for a physical technique, if you're moving into functional medicine or you want to do more of functional medicine, then you want to try to shift your thinking that hands-on technique, while wonderful and amazing, is one of your tools. Before, it might have been your identity, right? This is what I do, this is who I am, but now it's one of your tools. So as one of your tools, so let's say you're an acupuncturist, so needling, doing acupuncture, maybe doing cupping is one of your tools, along with maybe TCM, maybe functional medicine labs, supplements, meal plans. Maybe you like to use cold laser, whatever your thing is. You don't want to take these 5 tools I just mentioned and use just one of them where you have to create this huge expense. It's going to be this lopsided business setup, and it's going to create problems. So you want to start first thinking of it differently as a tool. It doesn't mean you don't stop doing it unless you want to. Like I gave the example of myself where I was injured, so I couldn't really physically do it anymore. So unless you want to stop, you don't have to, but you just want to sort of keep it in its appropriate place. So what does that look like? Let's say in this acupuncturist example, this doc, maybe they're a doctor of Oriental medicine. So this doc wants to mostly do functional medicine. She's mostly doing it online, so telemedicine. And then sometimes she's recommending acupuncture. It's very clear, it's indicated in this case. If they're local, she's recommending to herself, or we can give you other choices, someone else around here or in your area. And then how many of those visits a week is she going to do? So if she's doing functional medicine, first of all, full-time in functional medicine is like 3 days a week, max. Most people I can get them to do, I'm talking about patient-facing hours, 1 to 2 days a week. There's all these other things you have to do in your business. So those of you that are coming from being an internist or working in ER, or you're a nurse with these working a double or these long shifts, it's not like that. So you have much smaller patient-facing hours, and then you have all these other things you have to do. So in this case, this doctor is seeing patients 3 days a week. 2 days, that's really me saying a lot. 2 days is all functional medicine, and maybe 1 day is dedicated to when she's doing her acupuncture services. So if you're only doing that 1 day a week, do you want to build a whole clinic around that? Spoiler, the answer is no. Or just rent a little space, right? Because how much equipment do you need? If you have a table, why not go rent someone else's table? You want it decorated, right? Have them do all the decorating. You get to go in and visit and make sure it's a space that you like. It might not be perfect, but it's going to be good enough, right? They have a waiting room. They're going to handle sheet services. They're going to handle the garbage and the insurance and all this kind of stuff. So for about 10% of the cost, you rent a space, you bring your needles, right? Maybe small handheld equipment. Chiropractor can do this also. If you wanted to, let's say you have a different license and you want to do some of your functional medicine examinations in person, you can have a portable doctor's bag and walk in and do an exam in a space like that. So just keep that in mind and see, what percent of a tool this is. The other thing I want to say, that's sort of like basic supplies. Let's talk fancy supplies, like, this perfect table, or this really lavish waiting room. I have a ridiculously fancy desk that has 5 feet of screens, and the whole chair reclines completely back, and the computers work with me, so I can work lying on my back, like on a lazy boy chair with computer screens. So I bought that in year 6, right? What I'm basically saying is you don't start with that. It's a waste of money. Okay, a license. Now let me explain. You always want to practice up to your scope. So don't practice medicine if you don't have a medical license, right? Don't practice acupuncture if you don't have an acupuncture license, chiropractic, whatever it is. If you're not licensed to order labs, then don't. I can talk to you about different ways that you still may be able to utilize them. But if you can't, use it the same way someone with a physician license does, that's okay. You can still have a very big, successful practice. There's pros and cons with every license. The licenses that have, more flexibility to do more things also have more restrictions and more liability. So lots of options there. The reason I specifically say you don't have to have a license to start is because I have helped people that were in school. You know, they were going to get their license, and part of the conversation was, well, do you want to wait till you're done, or do you want to start building your practice now so by the time you're out it's already running and successful? So if they were going to become a medical doctor or a DO or a nurse or whatever it is, did they start their practice as that? No, they started as like a health coach or a nutrition consultant. They practiced up to their scope, and then they said they were in school finishing this degree. So even if they could only, in fact, I was thinking of a psychologist specifically. So like in her example, if she started, maybe she was just going to do maybe a little weight loss, some basic nutrition, maybe some basic digestion, meal plans, lifestyle practices, maybe meditation, movement, exercise, sleep. There's a lot she could do before she got to the point of what her license was going to allow. And the other reason I like to say that is because a lot of people leave what I call experience and money on the table. So we'll talk a bit about getting consults and clients. It's I don't want to say it's easy in the sense that it's not like you work hard. You work, but it's not complex. It's simple. You just have to know how to do it. So we'll get into that a bit. Anyway, what was the other thing I wanted to say about it? Oh yeah, so people leave experience and money on the table because that amount of time that they left not doing anything, they could have been learning and just sort of up leveling their skills. Nothing teaches you better than being in it. There's also financial success that's left on the table. And I gave this example of someone still in training, but I have this happen a lot with physicians and nurses and PAs, sometimes pharmacists, people who are already, their license is done, they're already in practice, but they've decided they want to do functional medicine. They've taken every course out there, but they're still waiting. I'm like, what are you waiting for? It's just get in it and do it. And then staff or payroll. You can absolutely just start on your own. Staff can be very, very helpful. Maybe you want a virtual assistant, maybe you want actual employees. So there's some pros and cons there. Sometimes it depends on state laws, but until you're making a certain amount, absolutely you can set it up yourself. Or if money's not an issue when you begin, then probably you're going to hire a VA initially and sort of have, maybe they'll do phone and email and have some buffers. We've evolved to the point where we have trained health coaches. They also do admin. They do like intake history gathering, do health coaching visits. So there's a big spectrum from doing it all on your own to bringing other people in, having them even be part of the care plan. But you don't have to start there. And maybe it's like a chiropractic thing or something, but I have known of people where they get out of school, they already had all these student loans, and then they say they can't start business without a $150,000 loan or more, which is not true. Do I know of a VA who uses Canva? Canva is really common, so lots of VAs do. And let's come back to that, but we can talk about, I can give you actual names, but we can talk about where to find some VAs and how to, bring them in. Okay, so that's a lot that you could start without having to have that expense. So try to wrap your mind around that and just play with the idea. All right, the second thing you don't need is to know everything. So now we're going to get into like that experience, and I'm worried I'm not ready. You don't have to solve every problem. You don't have to be everything for every patient. You don't have to accept every potential patient, and you don't have to do everything. I think a lot of us, because we came to functional medicine from our own health journey, when we start, we think about all the different things that helped us along the way, right? So maybe there were 3 great functional medicine providers, and then you saw like someone who did biofeedback, and then you used like an infrared spa, and then you got this great chef who had organic food, right? You think of everything you had, and then you want to open that clinic that has everything. It's a very natural thought process. But to have that business that does everything and multiple people, you just want to know what you're getting into. You're going to spend a lot of time doing admin. You're going to do a lot of people management. And if you like that and that sounds great, then go for it. Your profit margin is going to go down significantly because staff is the most expensive thing you pay for. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, what you can do is you can just start with a smaller piece, start getting people in, and then decide if you want to, broaden to different topics or issues or conditions. You don't have to accept every patient. You don't have to know everything. So one of the things, I think I bring this up later, is you know what you know. You're going to get better as you continue. The learning never ends. But if you don't know something, just tell the patient, I don't know. Like I've had practitioners where they never wanted the patient to know they didn't know something. So they'd make up an excuse to leave the room. Be like, I'm getting buzzed by the office, or I hear something, just a minute. And then they go out and they're like, thumbing through whatever, some textbook or medication guide, or I just brought all that stuff in. Like when I first started, I just had it right in there. If I was having a thought about something I didn't know, I'm talking to the patient, I'd say, I don't know, let me look. I'd pull out something and look it up. The patient appreciated it. No one ever complained. I had so many people tell me how much they love that. Or let's say I didn't know and I couldn't immediately find it, then I would say, I don't know, let me look into this and see what I find and I'll get back to you. Or, this is outside of my scope or skill set or specialty, but I'm going to refer you to someone else in town. So as long as you have sort of that approach, not only is the patient totally fine that you don't know everything, because that's not normal to know everything, but they really trust you. They trust that you're always going to put them first instead of this like possessive, oh, this is my patient, they're a number, they're a sale, I have to keep them no matter what. If you're always willing to put their needs first, then that's wonderful. That's how we want to do it anyway. So having simple things that you offer in the beginning, maybe one or two services that you offer, and that's it, is the best way to go about it. Fill up your one-on-one time. In fact, people who talk to me, like patients who want to see me, I only work with a few patients at a time, or practitioners who want to work with me. I just have two things. It's like you can do our online training academy, which I'm biased, but I think it's fabulous. Has a lot of content, very practical, like what you put right into practice. And I just explain it to them, and like it's right online. They can look at it, they can buy it. There's different payment methods, great. And then there's mentorship, which has like weekly clinical consults and practice questions with me, right? Like we're in it. And that's it. It's just those two things, not like a whole menu of services are really complicated. Make it simple and then fill it up. We'll talk a little bit more about knowing numbers. But all right, that's the second thing you do not need. So in functional medicine, is everything connected? Could you do a deep dive? Could you like maybe go down this genetic pathway or something? If you don't already know that, that doesn't mean you can't start. You can start with what you know. And then as the patients show up, a lot of them are going to drive your clinical learning, because the patients you attract, let's say your specialty to begin with, or what you felt comfortable moving forward with was maybe hormone health. You had a background, maybe you personally dealt with like Hashimoto's or something. So that was where you put your most amount of energy learning in the beginning. You're like, that's what I want to specialize in, because that's what you feel comfortable with. That's what you know, that's fine. And then as the patients come and you're starting to see them, you're starting to look at like, how the gut plays a role and that's connected. That might be your next avenue that you dive down. And so you're sort of expanding your gut knowledge and looking deeper with patients. And You take care of that first complex case and they get good results. They're going to send all of their severely broken friends. I would get the most complex cases and people flying in from other states. It was nuts. I still get incredibly complex cases now. So yeah, and you don't have to do complex cases, by the way. If you like that, I like puzzle solving, so it's fine. But if you say, I don't want all that time or thought process, that's fine. You can do it as simple or moderate or as deep as you want. But if you do start taking care of complex cases, they're going to bring something into you that you don't know, or it's no longer horses. Now you have to start looking for zebras, and that's going to drive your next piece of education. So don't feel like you can't start until, I can rattle off every clinically relevant SNP and every one carbon metabolism mediator, and I don't know, like I know every mold protocol or whatever there is. You just start where you start and then keep moving forward. Okay, and number 3 thing you don't need: corporate entity. I'll come back to that. A branding company, a marketing company, a podcast. Sorry if I'm disappointing you, but you don't need a podcast to start. Advertising fees, SEO, or a summit. So let's just talk a little bit about these. And by the way, be careful because you can get targeted. Like you opted in for this training, so until you opt out, like you're going to get an email from me. But my emails are, hey, here's a free training, or maybe talk to me and I can tell you about our other trainings if you want. That's it. But some companies, you show up for one thing and then you get in this loop, and now you're getting this like very compelling copy or Facebook ads, this sense of urgency that if you don't host a summit, you're not going to succeed. Like it's impossible, you're going to fail. Or if you don't have SEO set up, no one will ever find you. Whatever it is. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. So mostly that's baloney and you can ignore it. Yes. So the corporate entity, if you have significant assets and you want to protect those, then you're probably going to want a corporate entity from the start. If you're a newbie or you're starting from nothing and you have nothing, then you probably don't need a corporate entity to start with. So when I started my practice, I did not start with a corporate entity, and I incorporated, I guess, about a year in. So most people will end up there. But to get a corporate entity, you could set it up on your own, but it has to be done correctly. So it's typically better if you hire an attorney. And then depending on which attorney you hire, sort of a standard fee, and it's a couple thousand, or they gouge you and it's really expensive, right? But still at least a couple thousand. And then there's maintenance. So you're going to pay, I'm in California, but you're going to pay about $800 a year minimum corporate tax. And then you have to have meetings and annual minutes, and you have to file, a statement of information update every year. So there's all these things you have to do. So if you're not there at that level, don't do that yet. Save it. You can bring that in later. So just know where you're at. A branding company, no. I mean, if money's not an issue and you want to do it, fine. But I would say it's sort of a waste in the beginning because likely you're not even sure who you are yet. You haven't seen enough patients to know what you really like. So why spend money branding something that very likely could change? It's too easy to start your own brand to get you rolling and making money, or hiring an inexpensive VA to get it rolling. So I hired a branding company for the first time in this business in year 6, already at 7 figures. So if you get there and you want to hire a branding company, great, but don't start there. Same with a marketing company. Marketing companies, I always regret having that question, by the way. It's if you're going to have a corporation, it has to be a professional corporation. But there are practitioners who practice without it. So you just have to know, is that good for you or is that not good for you? what I wanted to present is that you do have options, so you can, consider where you're at. But yes, if you're, depending on the license you have, if you're going to get like an LLC, you're going to get a PLLC. And then it's different for every state and every license. You have to look. Some licenses, they can't get an LLC and they have to get an S corp, right? Okay, so marketing company, for the most part, you're gonna have to do your own marketing. There's things you can outsource and get some help with, but if you want to grow organically and have, happy patients, a good responsive list, relatively easy signups, it has to be in your voice with your message. Very rarely do I hire a marketing company. I usually wait until whatever business I'm growing is very far ahead. And I'll be honest, they've almost always disappointed me. It's just hard to find a good marketing company, and it's really easy to waste money. So just be aware of that. It's not where I would put any money to begin with. No banner ads, no ad in the gym. You don't need any of that. Do you need a podcast? You probably think you do because everyone in the world has a podcast, but no, you do not need a podcast, and it's a huge time suck. It takes time to build an audience with a podcast. Could it bring you patients later? Absolutely. Otherwise, for now, don't do it. Wait till you have more of a following. Then if you want a podcast, do it, bring your people in, and then grow your list and expand more. For now, maybe you want to be a guest speaker on someone else's podcast, but make sure it's an audience that makes sense, and don't expect more than maybe one soft lead to come from a podcast each time you show up. So knowing where people come from helps you dictate where you're going to spend your time and your energy. This is very, very important. We should talk a bit more about this after I get through this. Advertising fees, another way to waste money. Let me just check, make sure I'm recording. Okay, good. It sucks when you forget, right? So Facebook, Google, and Yelp. Facebook's probably the one people use most often. I mean, Yelp, they're like the mafia. They will hunt you down. Just don't answer the phone. Unless you're some chiropractors, it can be good. Occasionally a massage therapist. Otherwise, it's like if you're a plumber or a tree service business. For most of us, Yelp is not for us as far as advertising dollars. It's a waste of money. Google ads can eat up a lot of money. For them to work, you do have to have SEO set up. I'll talk about that in a minute, but you have to have a highly responsive system. So when you start, that's not going to be you. Don't waste money on Google ads. Maybe later you can. And then Facebook sort of makes you pay to play. So you could do sort of a low cost boost a post to help your page even sort of show up, your business page show up and get seen, but don't spend much money at all, really, very, very little. And don't do Facebook ads until you know what you're doing, because that can be a big disappointment. And until you know like what the flow is. Facebook can sometimes with their algorithm generate a lot of leads or build a list, but it is a crappy list. They are not your people. They don't show up. So it's like this false sense of, oh, that worked, but it doesn't. So can Facebook be used to make a lot of money? Sure. But these are people who have all their systems built out. They're working with professionals. I was thinking of one, my business coach. I have this philosophy that you stay with your business coach until you out earn them. She makes $7 million a year. So I will stay with her until I make $7 million a year. She was talking about one of her clients that has basically a membership site, and some of you I know want to do membership, and he does like maybe, he makes millions in his business, so he does like 100,000 in Facebook ads every month. His professionals he's working with, they have a system. It's very clear. There's only one thing he offers. It leads to, the funnel leads there. It makes sense. The profit is there. But most people, when they throw their hat in the ring, they set up a Facebook page, they say, oh my gosh, I need some patients, and they spend $100 to $1,000 a month on Facebook ads and nothing comes from it. So just don't go there yet. Same with SEO. So before, like, net neutrality changed and all these things, and back with when Alexa rating meant something, you could do SEO and get found. That does not happen anymore. As a new person coming and starting your business, you are not going to get found. So don't worry about it. Let it go. Don't even try to get found. Your website, when you start, is for credibility. It's your online business card. It's how you tell people information, but people are going to find you because you meet them in some way and you say, here's my website, go look here, or maybe a friend refers them. When I first started Body Love Cafe, I mean, I knew this because my previous business, I didn't even mention this, but my previous business had a client list of about 20,000, and traveled and helped corporations and a lot of healthcare professionals and executives and taught them all about business building, branding, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So I knew this going in, so I made a very simple website. I used Wix, which would not be my go-to right now. I'd probably say maybe Squarespace, because Wix is only partially mobilely responsive, and about 67% of your people are going to look at your materials on their cell phone. So if you use Wix, like I stuck with it. Now with the rebrand, they're redoing everything. Hallelujah. But for years I had to do it myself. And every time I'd make a change on Wix, I would then have to update the mobile site. That's a nightmare. So Squarespace or some other simple drag and drop surface, where it does it on its own, it's fully mobily responsive and you don't have to do it, that's your answer. If you're new and tech is not your thing, you don't open a WordPress site to begin with. That's going to be a nightmare. You're going to be crying in the corner. You're never going to see a patient because you're going to be pulling your hair out with this tech stuff. And you have to properly update WordPress and you're going to have to hire a professional. You're not ready for that. Don't do it. Do Squarespace or something else similar. So I made my website. I created my little static pages. I wrote a couple blog posts knowing that I would want to be in a visit and say, like, okay, I want you to start with this meal plan. Here's where you go find it. Or I need to talk to you a little bit about sleep. Here's where you go find this. Or you're wondering what the heck functional medicine is. I mean, I'm telling you about it, but I didn't have like 2 hours to discuss it with that patient. So here's this post. You can go read about that. So I just put in some basics that I needed, and I knew nothing else would happen for a while. And it's true. I did not write another blog post for the first 2 years. Still grew fabulously, just didn't waste time on things that wouldn't pay off, and didn't update the website for after that too. So it's going to be static. Then later, as you build and you get bigger, yes, bring in some SEO. There's a lot that can be done for free. Sometimes you might want to build, bring in an SEO specialist, but not in the beginning. And then last one, a summit. If you don't know what a summit is, consider yourself lucky. But otherwise, you know what a summit is and you feel like you have to be on one and you have to do one to build your list. But if you are not already successful and mostly full in your one-on-one private practice, you're not ready for a summit. A summit is about volume. A summit is about list building and exposure. A summit is expensive. To do it right, it costs money and it costs time. So I know some of these people, they're my friends too, but I'm just gonna tell you the truth anyway. I know people are saying, like, buy this $97 training and I will tell you how to do a summit and it's all your answers and it will get you all these people, and it won't. It's gonna get you a really big headache and you're gonna be in the weeds for a long time. And at a minimum, it's gonna put your practice growth 6 weeks behind. So summit is later. Basically, the message here is slow down, focus. We want to do the things that are going to be helpful. All right, number 4 thing you do not need, loans. So most of the time, you can start without any loans. The only thing I say to stick your neck out on is a good business coach. And I do say good, because what are they going to teach you? If it's not relevant to you or they can't back you up, like, if your business coach was also the person who sells the summits and that's all they do is tell you to do a summit, they're not the right person, right? But if there's a good business coach, then great, that's worth it. And maybe rent if you need a space. That's it. Those are the only 2 things to potentially extend yourself on. Do you need $150,000 for that? No, not even close. So I just so you know, I started the business with zero loans, zero credit card. It's the third time I've done it, so this is not a fluke. But I have built multiple high 6, 7 figure businesses without any loans and any credit cards. So it can be done. Sort of one of my specialties. So that's the next one. You don't need a lot of money. You don't need an MBA. If you have one, great. We're probably going to have to actually get you to think differently, because being an entrepreneur, which is what you are if you're in private practice, is completely different than a corporation. Even when you incorporate, even if you have an entity, you're a one person, right? Solo owner corporation, dramatically different than working for a bigger corporation. But the reason I put MBA in there is you're gonna learn a lot, right? But there's some basics you want to do right from the beginning, and then you're going to learn as you go. You don't need to go get another degree, or you don't need to even have the perfect business plan that's like typed out and you can present to a bank. You don't need any of that. And you don't even need a bookkeeper in the beginning. If money's not an issue and you have a bookkeeper, then great. Have them set you up on like QuickBooks Online. Takes a little bit of time to set up, but then it's brilliant because it's going to memorize your transaction as it comes in. It's going to be so efficient. Later, when you have staff, you can do payroll in there. It's going to do your 1099s, your W-2s, so tax compliance. When you file taxes at the end of the year and you print reports and P&Ls and balance sheets and you give it to your tax person, easy, easy peasy. But if you're starting and you're on a budget, I mean, hello, welcome to paper and a notebook. You could write something down. You could use Google, right? If you do what used to be called G Suite and is now Google Workplace, and you can sign a BAA and have it be HIPAA compliant, you could just store things in Drive, make folders and make notes, even scan your receipts. Like if you just hang on to receipts, that thermal ink wears off and disappears, right? And I hate receipts and all that stuff. That drives me crazy. So for the lifestyle, the busy lifestyle we have, I run 4 businesses, right? And now I have a dog and I have other people I'm responsible for. So sometimes it can be a zoo, right? I have to be very efficient, very organized. And since I don't like paper, the habit we have, and my husband, by the way, like love him to pieces, but ADD boy. So like a receipt is like crumpled into a million pieces, right? So for everyone in the house, we have a blue box. It's turquoise. It says something like, I don't know, follow your bliss or have a dream, or, something very woo woo and lovely. And I think it's super cute. And it has folds down, it has a little metal attachment like a magnet. So it's super easy to open and then shut. Everyone tosses their receipts in there. They're not in order. We toss it in. And then we have a person come once a month and just organize them by month and scan them in. So then they're in the Drive. There's a folder that says 2022, and then in it is January 2022, February 2022, March 2022. They're all in together because now with OCR, I use ScanSnap, or I think it's Fujitsu. Forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. I'm trying to remember the brand. It wasn't the cheapest scanner, but it was worth it for high volume. And now we don't have to worry about anything disappearing. We get to shred it. I don't have to keep paper, and then it's searchable. And most of the time you can narrow something down to a year or even a month. It's easy to find. And remember, if you have everything in QuickBooks anyway, those receipts are just if you have to back something up. So in the beginning, you don't have to have a bookkeeper to start. I did not have one to start. I didn't have the budget for it. And then I hired one like a year and a half in, which was sort of a little late considering I was already, I think approaching $500,000 at a year and a half. So that was a little late to say, all right, bookkeeper, come in and good luck. You need to go backwards and clean it up. So maybe it cost me about $1,800 to do the cleanup. Fine. That was fine after the fact. $1,800 then, no problem. And then she just does all the bookkeeping going forward. So you can decide if you do it in the beginning or if you do it later. You do want to track expenses though, but just don't make it harder than it needs to be, because having a bookkeeper doesn't make you money, right? The bottom line is you need to be a good clinician and you need to be a good business owner, right? You have to bring people in. Those are your first two skills to master before you worry about making a great graphic, having the best filing method, or beautiful books. Okay, number 5 thing you do not need is to be ready, because no one is ever ready. Ask every pregnant mom, were they ready for the baby? And they had 9 months where they knew. And no one's ever ready, because you don't know what it's like until you're in it. And let me just give you some reasons why you don't want to wait. So let's talk about what it is you really need. You need to have integrity. So hopefully you do. I'm assuming if you're here and you're looking at my stuff, you're a cool person. So you want to have integrity. You want to be ethical, practice within your scope. You want to be honorable. So if you offer something for a patient, if you're doing one-on-one services, or you're doing a package, or you're doing a membership, whatever you're doing, you want to make sure you deliver what you promise. Ideally, I think it's sort of nice to under promise and over deliver, but just make sure you deliver what you said you were going to. And you want to put that patient first. That was the thing I said earlier. So over personal or business needs, you always put, not their needs in the sense that like they're an energy vampire and you sacrifice your personal life. I'm not talking about that, but in your patient time, when you're making clinical decisions and referrals and what do they need, you always put what they need first and not what you or the business or your inventory wall needs first. And then your plan to start, you can have sort of a simple plan. For those who work with me, I have them do something called 11 pillars, which makes a business plan more fun. And your plan to start is going to evolve and expand. So don't expect it to be perfect right away. But you need to know what it is you want and what days and hours you want to work. And everyone thinks that's the weirdest thing to ask to start with. But we can build any practice you want. So first, I need to know what it is you want. Like you have to dream of that. So if you want to only see patients 2 days a week, and you start building a practice where you're open 6 days a week, that doesn't make sense, and you're not going to get to be where you want. The other thing is it's going to really mess up your numbers, because if we talk about it and we're honest and we figure out that you're going to see patients 2 days a week, you're going to have these days off, these are the days that go like towards admin, this is the day you like do household chores and laundry and run all your crazy errands, and this is the time you're doing like marketing and lead generation, connecting with people. So once we know that, then we say, okay, here's the window for patient facing hours. So I can't tell you how many people just don't do this. If this is my window for patient facing hours, what is my financial goal? And not just to break even, right? But to make money, because you need to pay your bills, you want to grow, maybe you want to hire staff, right? So what are your financial goals? Then you have to look at, here's my financial goals, here's my time. How many people can I see in that time? I mean, do I do a 15-minute visit? Do I do a 90-minute visit? Like, what's your structure? So once you know that, you see these limiters, then that narrows down, like, what do I need to charge for that visit to meet it? So maybe you were planning high volume and really low cost, and then you realize, wait a minute, I only have enough hours to have like sort of a concierge high cost practice. That's fine, but you're going to set that up differently, right? Your website's going to look different. Your marketing message is going to look different. The way you deliver your services is going to be different. Or maybe the other way around. Maybe you built a practice thinking it was going to be like a high cost visit and really high touch. You're building it that way, but you had so many hours and you were bringing so many people in, you weren't able to keep up with it and deliver it well because you actually had too much volume. And then you had to hire all these people, or things fell through the cracks because you're still trying to take care of everyone. So we want to be very intentional about it. And the message is that you can do it any way you want. It'll all work. You just have to calculate it correctly. Only offer 1 or 2 services and fill those services before you fill your groups. You need like business operational basics. You do need a website. It does not have to be anything crazy expensive. And it needs to look better than a 9th grader made it, but it does not need to look like a professional branding site. And by the way, I taught my 11-year-old nephew how to make websites. So I know you can do this. We'll find someone who can do it for you cheaply. You need some type of EMR, right? So HIPAA compliant medical records. And you need a business bank account. So you need a way to accept money from people. And then if your license, whatever those requirements are, like informed consent, HIPAA privacy notice, those types of things, you need to meet those. So you're always in legal compliance. But don't worry yet about, don't worry about having the perfect employee manual. That can happen later, those types of things. 1 to 2 services is like, so let's say someone calls, they do a no charge consult with you, or you have a clinic and they call your office and talk to your front desk staff and they say, I have migraines and I want to know if you could help me, and how much does it cost? And then the front desk staff says, well, if you see this doctor, it costs that much, and if you see that one, it costs this much. And then there's these every visit has a different price, and then sometimes there's this service, and you can go there. And we have the group. You could go do the group. There's some people who do our membership. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it gets too complicated. You're not going to be able to focus. If they call and it's like, we have a discussion, here's what you do, can you help me? We've worked with people like this sounds familiar, I'd love to see if we could get into this. These are some of the thoughts I'm already having. Well, how do you work with people? We do it one of 2 ways. Patients either do A or they do B, or maybe you only offer A. You don't want to give too many choices, and you want to fill that up. If you're brand new, be making $5,000 to $6,000 or more a month consistently before we move to the next level, or 10 or 15 or 20, whatever it is. And why not do a group detox even when your individual practice isn't full? That's a good saying. I like that. Thank you, Jennifer. So groups, there's 2 different things. To fill a group, like a paid group, that takes volume. And I know there's a lot of people out there, I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to be offensive, but I know them, I've talked to them, I've talked to their attorneys, and I know there's a lot of people who say, oh, well, you with your professional license, you can see those people in California, and then you'll just be a health coach and do telemedicine in all these other states. And if you have a professional license, that's illegal. I don't recommend it. It's not worth it. You can have a really successful practice just in the states you're licensed in. You don't need to treat patients in other states. Don't put it at risk. I'm a big fan of like a 0 risk practice, right? Where you sleep well at night. And I have people who work with me, so I want to take good care of them. Now you can do groups. And I've talked to like the 3 top functional medicine attorneys in the country. So you can lead a group paid program, and with your medical license, MD, DO, nurse, RN, NP, chiropractor, any of those that ND, right, that have these restrictions, you can lead that group, and you can even answer live Q&A, and that's fine. They can be located anywhere and it can be paid, but you cannot do, you don't want to do one-on-one meetings with them, even virtually. You're not going to order labs for them. So you can't do something then that becomes they are a patient. It has to truly be an educational group, right? And it's like a limited time frame. It's always in a group. So that's very, very specific. So you don't try to fill a paid group until your one-on-ones are at least 80% full, because you're going to be very frustrated. It's too hard. You need volume for it. Fill your one-on-ones. There's certain systems and momentum and financial thresholds we want to get before you do that. Now, could you speak or teach a free class? I've been teaching patients for years. I still do it. Could you teach that to a group before your practice is full? Sure. That's different. That's not filling a group. That's a community service and a marketing tool, right? You're teaching some information, and then you can, some people might want to come in and become a patient, right? Okay, let me keep going on this because I just looked at the time. Oops, people are still coming in. Let's see, what did I leave out? Oh, reverse engineer to meet your goals. I sort of touched on that. That's a bigger process with my mentors. I just like go through, I go through the whole thing. Yeah, with telemedicine, the state is based on where the patient is. So there's some states where you can easily get licensed to do telemedicine. Just make sure you actually follow the rules. But I feel like there's this concept like if I'm not able to see everyone and like have people order labs right off my website or something like that, I'm not going to succeed. And that's not true. It's actually going to be a lot of extra work and you, it might be illegal. I mean, it's just not, just don't even worry about it. Just fill your local practice first, then we'll go to the next level. Um, when you reverse engineer to meet your goals, that's advanced. I don't even, I'm running out of time. But what I would say is like you really can't fail unless you just don't do the work because it becomes a game of math at that point. When you figure out what you want, the hours you're going to work, what you're going to charge, what you're going to offer, and we go backwards and you literally know what you have to do every month, every week, and every day. It's awesome. So it's still work, but it's simple, it's clear. Practice within your scope and knowledge and have a place for answers that are outside of that, right? Okay, here's an important piece. I'm almost done. Thank you for staying. Sorry. This is what happens when you turn 5 things into 22. Okay, having drive, you do have to have some ambition and you have to have some drive. I'm assuming you do, otherwise you wouldn't have gone through getting your medical license and you wouldn't be like crazy enough to say, hey, I want a private practice and to be an entrepreneur. So hopefully you have that drive. If you've been in practice for a long time and you lose that drive, because let's just be honest, burnout is real. It usually means not that you can't do this anymore or you've lost your drive. It means you're not challenged enough, or you're not excited about something. It's really just something we need to pivot. So I just want to say that, but you do need drive. You can't just think about it and it happens. It does take some work. You have to be emotionally invested. You have to have some stakes. The people who do the best, it's like my situation. Had a kid, it was hard to come back from being sick and go out in the world again. Like felt so weird. Maybe like how some people are feeling now, but felt really weird. But there was no backup plan. So just had to make it work. Those are the people who do the best. So try not to have that backup plan. And momentum. That's a piece I think people forget about. There is nothing more difficult than you got everything set up, you started, you see 2 or 3 patients a week. It's agonizing. You know, you see just a few people, you're spending 10 hours prepping for report of findings, going over all those labs. You don't have enough volume to like really get in the flow of your services and really learn your process and develop systems. The income is not significant enough. So that's not a fun place to be. You want to be out of that place, you know, within like 6 weeks. Just some people, they've come to me and they were languishing there forever. And then we had to turn it around. Also, the pain of perfection. If you're a perfectionist, and a lot of us who went through school are, because why else would we have done that? Too many years. You need to let go of that. There's no entrepreneur who does everything perfect. So things do have to be good enough so you get it done, and then you can keep perfecting it along the way. But if you never open the office or go online or pick the EMR or offer the first service or launch the first web page or recommend your first protocol or order your first lab because it's not perfect, you're just going to miss it. Okay, so sorry, there's like a little gnat flying around. I spelled perfection. Look at, see, good enough. That's hysterical. I love it. Thank you, Jennifer, for seeing that. So safety net. You can have a safety net if you really want one, but I say if you're going to do it, just go for it and just plan on being successful. Be careful not to plan to fail. Everyone's going to have bad days and rough times, but you just, you know, any challenge or any no or any struggle that comes along is an opportunity to just do better and to figure out something that works better for you. A lot of times it becomes a gift, even if it doesn't feel like a gift at the time. And I hate that phrase. It's like, when one door shuts, another one opens. No one tells you that it's hell in the hallway. Like, how long is that hallway? But truly, some of the challenges we have, they do become gifts in the long run, because then we find out, oh, I was marketing to these people and I don't even like those people. I want to market to someone else. Or I was offering these services and I would rather do it this way. Or I was so gung ho on having an in-person clinic, I didn't realize how much freedom, how much I'd love having a virtual one, or vice versa, right? I already mentioned this, the clarity of daily and weekly action, what to focus on. I saw earlier talking about how Canva can be a time suck. The very short answer to Canva not being a time suck is you only have a certain amount of time to get that done. And that's no joke. Like, you're going to have to do a lot more marketing always, but especially in the beginning that you think it needs to be productive marketing. So is using Canva part of your marketing? Yes. But if you had an hour to market and you spent an hour on Canva, that was a fail. So if you only have an hour to market, you can spend 5 to 10 minutes on Canva. And whatever you accomplish in 5 to 10 minutes is good enough. You need the rest of that 50 minutes to take that graphic and go actually market with it. So wherever you're at, you have to time chunk, only do one thing at a time. Multitasking is a myth, forget it. One thing at a time, and you set timelines and boundaries. It was like if you worked somewhere else, right? You can't, those of you who come off hospital shifts, you can't say, well, I have a 12-hour shift, but it's going to take me 24 hours to see these patients. So I'm just going to stay clocked in. It doesn't work that way. So you have to, if you worked for a corporation before, you weren't in healthcare, you had a deadline, right? Payroll had to be turned in on Friday. You can't say, well, I need 2 more weeks to do payroll. So you have to set your own deadlines, even if it's like a timer, literally an old-fashioned timer where you see like the ADD timers I recommend for people where you see the color go away. That's it. So let's see what else. Clinical consults and practice support. I offer that in my mentorship on purpose, because everyone who did private coaching and consulting, that's what they wanted. And that's what I do for my practitioners. So twice a week for my practitioners, they can all jump in, ask any questions they want before a visit, after a visit, looking at labs, talking about protocols, patient history, or practice building, a logo, legal forms, EMR, whatever it is. So that's what I do in my mentorship. So if you don't work with me, just find out where you're going to get that information from. Like, who are you going to reach out to when you have a question? I know for a lot of people, it's helpful, peace of mind, gives them more security going out there and doing their thing, because they have like very consistent, regular checkpoints and where they can ask questions. So yeah, we do an hour twice a week video. We do chat time. We do email. We do a Facebook group. We do monthly group videos. We do masterminds. So there's plenty of places to get support. Bottom line though is, find your drive, your stakes, create your momentum, and just dive in and do it. So functional medicine is awesome. I think I'm already preaching to the choir here. And why not you? Like, we need you. There is not enough practitioners, so we need you. That's not an issue. This industry is so far from saturated. So if you thought that, nope, not the case. There's really no excuse for you not to be successful. It just might be you don't have the tools or support you need, or maybe business wasn't your thing beforehand. But yeah, why not you? Be the success story. The learning never ends. It's not always easy, but it is simple if you know what to do. When I signed up with my coach, my new coach, who cost almost, it was 90,000 between the coach and the branding, so almost 6 figures. I was like, oh my gosh, that's an insane amount of money. So I made it back in 10 days. Just want you to know that. It was like, that's stakes, right? I'm going to spend that kind of money. I'm going to make it back. So I made it back in 10 days. And then I won an award. Why not? Just be the one who blows people out of the water and wins awards wherever you go. There's nothing special about it. It's just knowing what to do and doing the work. So absolutely, it can be you. If anyone's curious about support, clinical consults, lab analysis, practice answers, functional medicine training, you can always schedule a time to talk to me. It's no charge consults, your time. Every time I talk to someone, it's completely different. And I love hearing from you all because you're all so fascinating. Most of you, sometimes I have to reassure you, like your fears and your doubts, everyone has them. But then I love hearing like your unique situation and where you're practicing and helping to set that up. But yeah, usually I have at least one good tidbit to share during that time, and then I can answer questions about what we do. So if you want to schedule, it's sort of first come, first serve. My assistant controls my calendar, so whatever space is in there is in there. But that's the link if you want to schedule. Let me see. Can you touch on considerations a licensed nutritionist should keep in mind planning my practice around 3-month programs? Sounds great so far. So you, depending on your, because nutritionist is sort of a broad term, like, is this a registered dietitian? Is this a health coach? Is this someone with a certification? Or do they have a master's or PhD in nutrition, right? So you have to look at what, remind me what LDN is. I know what CNS is, but I forgot what LDN is. Can you write that out? So just make sure you know about any, okay, make sure you know for Illinois what the restrictions are. A licensed dietitian, nutritionist, I think that's in California what we call registered dietitian, but make sure it's the same thing. If it is, there's a website, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but you can Google it. There's some good organizations out there, and there's like reciprocity, and you can sort of like look up the state. So like our registered dietitian, she's able to work with people in the most amount of states, and it tells you, it's like a green and red map, it tells you the states or if there's specific rules. So it's very, very clear. So if you want to work in more states and your license allows it, go for it. Otherwise, just look at your state, look up, scope of practice, if you have a board, what their rules are, or call them and see, are you able to order labs? Another good resource is I like Rupa Health. I've taught for them many times. I don't work for them, so I'm not, yep, that's it right there. Thank you, Marta. Perfect. That's what we use too. So I'm not employed by them or anything, but I think they're great. They're like a lab clearinghouse, and they're a wonderful resource to see if you can order labs and helping you to set up accounts. Calling the actual lab company is a great solution too, because they're very invested in trying to figure out who can order labs or not. And even the same license can be very different from state to state. So if you are licensed in different states, make sure you might be able to, order a GI map in 2 of the states you're licensed in and not the 3rd or something like that. So we have multiple practitioners. We actually have a grid. It says every state, who can work in what state, and if there's any limits to what they can order. So that way, if someone calls in, like if they're from a state and we don't have anyone to see them, we say, go to IFM, find a practitioner, right? If we have a practitioner who's licensed in that state, they can see them, great. We tell them who that is. If there's any restrictions, we let them know. Other than that, after labs, you're finding out what supplement companies you can open accounts with. I don't work for Designs for Health. I have taught for them. They're my favorite for many reasons. That's sort of like a whole nother call, so I'm gonna have to say that. But whoever you like, great. Get your form set up. Once you're doing it legally, you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's, start practicing. And if you're doing packages, great. You need to have a form for patients to sign. You need to tell them how much it costs and what they're going to get. If you have a refund policy or not. I don't do any refunds. We put way too much work into it. A lot of it's digital. So I just tell them up front, there's no refunds, like be in or be out. I'm totally fine with either one. If you want me to find other people for you, I'll help find other people for you. But if you're going to be in our program, like be in. And then, yeah, just do it. If you have a more specific question, let me know. But otherwise, I don't see any issues there. Sounds great. Build, practice, have fun. Okay, let's keep going. Questions? Any other questions that you want to put in there? And I'll put that link. I don't remember the link actually. How was it? FMA consult. Okay. If anyone does want to talk to me, tinyurl.com FMA consult. That's how you get a sneak peek at my calendar. Answer previous questions above, maybe via email. Let me just see if I missed anything. Let me answer it now because I don't think I'll be doing more email. Let's see. Do I know of a VA who can use Canva? Yes, I know of a specific one, and let me tell you where you can find other ones. One VA who I know can do Canva is the worker bee. So the worker and the letter B. So you could look that up. Someone, VAs who do like social media for you and things like that, youridealpatients.com. You could go to Facebook and join like a VA group. You could ask your other colleagues, like who do they use, and ask for referrals. Whenever you use a VA, you do want to have an agreement. Like for my mentors, I just gave them agreement that they can use, but you want to have a certain, simple terms, but a contract. And then when you're testing them, start with something that's not secure. Something that's doesn't have sensitive data, a small task. And with Canva, honestly, you could probably go to like, what's it called, Fiverr or something like that. I think you can find people. You can find a high school student who does Canva. So lots of avenues there. Let's see, was there anything else I was going to say about VAs? Oh, if you're going to use a VA or anyone who has access to your patient data, you want to vet them, of course, but you want to have them sign a privacy policy. And then we actually have them sign a BAA, so a business associate agreement. So I've given those out to those in my mentorship program. If you're not in there, maybe Google it or find one that you like or ask your attorney. But having your own BAA for anyone who's going to interact in that way. Functional medicine textbook out there, which one is your go-to? I mean, honestly, I don't use them that much anymore, but when I did, because I had a stack of like 8, talking years ago, and it was like right in the office. I had, I don't remember the name of the book for the medications, like the nurses one that you flip through, that's like 6 inches thick. I had a couple different supplement lines, like clinical reference guides. I had like herbal compendiums and like herbal drug interactions. Actual textbooks, I didn't typically bring that into a visit. Those weren't the kind of things that I needed there. Trying to think of what else. You could look things up as you needed it. What else was in there? No, that was pretty much it for in the office. For now, I'll look up research and read research, but I can find stuff fast. There's a big difference between like a patient going to Dr. Google and they read Joe's blog and you pull up something off PubMed, right? Or, you're reading something Mayo Clinic put out or something like that. So now so much is online if you know good sources. I did this for my mentorship people just the other day. I gave them like 5 different resources online to quickly look up drug, herb, and herb to herb, supplement interactions. In fact, I gave them one like whole big long PDF, but having a nice search engine, something you can search is helpful. And then we had a pregnancy lactation guide. So sometimes we'd make our own resources. I think some of you know that I created a Functional Med Labs, a lab analysis tool, which is forever, almost finally ready to be released. The first one I made 6 years ago, I've used all the way, but now I brought in everything, not just blood, but GI map and Dutch and leaky gut testing and urinalysis and IBS testing and SIBO and oats and the list goes on and on. All our favorite tests are there. You just punch it in and it tells you what it means and therapeutic considerations and supplements by dose. So these things, when I created that, I wasn't thinking, oh, let me create a tool other people will want. I was thinking, holy crap, this is so much work and I can't spend 10 hours on every patient. So how am I going to do this and be efficient? And then I made the tools so I could be efficient. And then just other people wanted them. So great. Let's see, what other question did I miss? Is a group through WellWorld within the non-patient boundaries? It could be, it depends on how you do it. So WellWorld, which if you don't know, is a coaching app that's collaborated with Designs for Health. It is a HIPAA compliant platform. So you can actually do some emails and do some texts. And you can offer a group that way. You have to see if there's any restriction on your license if you're going to include supplements. If you were going to just lead a group and you had a meal plan and you had only group classes, probably fine for everyone. Double check for yourself. But if you're going to recommend supplements, you have to see if there's a restriction or not. Sometimes the restriction isn't a license thing, it's a wholesale thing, where if you just offer it in that way, you have to have a wholesale license, you have to pay, wholesale taxes and file, versus if you're dispensing supplements in the course of treatment, you don't need to do that. So sometimes you have to make that distinction. Let's see, what else? Oh, the ADHD timer. Oh, good, and you already bought it. It's pretty cool, huh? It's not just for ADHD, it's kids too, and it's just nice to see the time go by and not get lost in the tunnel, right? Love it. Let's see, what else did I miss here? The 3 online course programs you suggest. The ones I was mentioning or something else? What else did I recommend? I think I talked about mine, which is called Functional Medicine Academy, and then I do a mentorship. Or was there something else, Melanie? If I missed it, tell me, just so I can say it. No, I wasn't seeing 7 patients a week. I was doing 7 hours, so patient hours. And it took a full year to get to 7 patient hours. So it wasn't like I started there. In fact, I sort of worked up to 5 to begin with, but it took a full year to build up to having 7 patient hours filled. And at full time, that's all I'm doing. I never went above 12 hours of patient visits. Most of the time, 7 to 10. Right now, the patient visits I do per week is about, I give myself a 3 to 4 hour block, but they're mostly half-hour visits, and I do 3 or 4 of them. So we're talking maybe 2 hours, 1 or 2 hours patient facing. By the way, that's still multiple 6 figures, just so you know. Okay, so when I started the first time and I made $250, what fees? Oh my gosh, I started so low because I was just starting. I was coming off of being disabled. I mean, talk about doubt, fears, and insecurity and just doing it anyway. I think, I don't know, I started at maybe 50 or 100 an hour. Stupid cheap. Still made plenty of money. And then I just would raise it. You can go high to begin with. There's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I've helped many people do that, and I can tell you how to do it. For me, because it was so new, I was just I'm going to use supply and demand. I'm going to go at this price. When it's totally full, I have a waiting list, I'm going to raise the price. And then a few people fall away, I've got a few more spots. Fill it up again. There's another waiting list, raise the price a little bit. That's what I did. That's why even the first year of COVID, which was so crappy, I raised prices twice. No one was raising prices in COVID. Okay, let's see. do I recommend, the person who asked me that program, I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want to say anything negative, but my answer is no. So that program that you sent me, the direct message, do I recommend it? No, I don't. I don't want to say anything negative about another program, so I'm just going to tell you that. What in-person events other than offering classes can you go to for new consults and clients? Do you mean like to learn, Nancy? Do you mean to learn as a practitioner, or do you mean to go attract clients or patients? Can you clarify that for me so I understand? What initial marketing do you start with? This is good. Let me just check one thing. I don't mind answering all these questions. I just want to make sure I don't miss that I have to show up somewhere else. Okay, we're doing okay. What time is this at? Okay, I have a long time. I'm not going to tell you how long I have because then you're going to ask me questions that entire time, but we're good. Okay, so what initial marketing do you start with? From beginning to end, nothing is going to be more powerful than you speaking, teaching, whether you're teaching to a group or teaching on someone else's stage or their podcast. You don't need to start your own, but I mean, podcasts are really sort of low level, so I shouldn't even say that, but maybe even, on Facebook or a live or something, but you could do a local networking group and go show up and speak. I taught classes in my previous career. I would go places, and in the beginning, I'd go anywhere and I'd go and teach. That's your highest return. When I started this clinic, I was like, I'm lazy. I don't want to go anywhere. People are going to come to me. And so I did. I had them come to me, and it was great. Even when I taught my classes, anyone who knows this area, this is like one person, right? Ignacio Valley Road is this like really long, high traffic road. And I would have my classes on Wednesday night at 6:30. It was the worst traffic. And I'd get over 80 people there, and I had to stand in a doorway and teach to both rooms. So if you know how to, and by the way, that was unpaid marketing. So if you know how to market, you can fill it up, and I never even made an offer. I just taught really good content. And then the people who were like, oh yeah, that's interesting, I want to see about maybe becoming a patient, they self-selected. And the ones who didn't, they just got good information and had a class. But where can you show up? Where can you speak? Offer something. Don't go in like salesy, like, oh, I want to capture you and have you be my patient. How can you help people? So some people say they want to give back. I had a philosophy that we give up front. So give up front. It's just always worked for me. Okay, so let's see. Oh, thank you, Megan. I appreciate that. Such nice comments. Yes, I like Rupa. Rupa Health. So if you don't know Rupa Health, rupahealth.com. Now, some states you can like increase the price of labs and profit off them. Some states you can't. The ones who can, I see some practitioners who double and triple the price of labs. I'm not a fan of that, right? Like, I want us to make money and do well, but I want to take care of the patients too. And I think that's egregious, but some people do that. In the states where you can't do that, but you clearly have to like make up for staff time and all that, you can have a service fee or a credit card fee, or Rupa Health has a service fee, right? When I first started, I was like, I'm giving the patient the cheapest price ever because I'm on their side. Sometimes it just wouldn't work. Something would happen, like you might not break even. You just can't do that. So then I increased to $5, and that wasn't enough. So it had to be like sort of a certain percentage. And as long as you line item it out and it's a service fee, that's fine. It just has to be clear. Rupa Health, they get you the cheapest cash prices at all of your favorite, labs. Or if they don't carry your lab, ask them, maybe they will. They have a lot of lab companies. And then they charge a 7% service fee. And it's full disclosure, patient knows, So like a $300 test, that's what, $20, $21. It's just, it's not that big of a deal, right? For what they do. They do email, they do customer service, they drop ship it there. They let you know when it's ready. I used to have a full-time staff member who had to check 10 different lab companies every single day and drop ship these kits. And Rupa Health felt like getting a free staff member. It was fabulous. So yeah, I like it. Or just go to the labs direct, either one. And yes, Designs for Health is my favorite for many, many reasons. Oh, I know what you're saying now, Melanie. Okay, so got it. Online, if you're going to offer an online course, if you're at that point, and you're going to do that, or maybe that is your thing you're going to sell. That's like what you're filling. That's fine. There's many different ways you can do it. The most common ones are Teachable, Kajabi, and I use MemberVault. So I don't know that they're the most common, but I like them. I think they're easy to use and, low cost to get started, pretty well organized. So there's more out there, but that's what a lot of people use. Yeah, Jennifer just mentioned a couple other ones. So awesome. Okay, so Nancy clarified when she was asking about where you go to attract new clients and building practice. So where do you go to do those classes? Okay, so where do you go to teach classes? Well, so one of the things I have my people do is figure out who their ideal client is, right? So once you know that, and that's an involved process because you want to get crystal clear on that and saying, women 35 to 55 have hormone issues, you need to get more specific than that. You want to actually like know who these people are. You want to be able to talk to them. You want to know where they are, right? Like you don't want to go do a presentation at the local mechanics group if your ideal client is hanging out at the gardening group. So you have to be efficient with your time. There's only so many hours in the day. But once you know who you want to work with, then where are they? I mean, you're going to bring people to you and you're going to have a list and then you're going to communicate with them and do all these things. But how do you find them on Facebook? How do you find them like on Google? Where are they locally? And then when you know what they do and sort of an idea where they are, what groups do they belong to? Where do they go? And then you connect with that group. And obviously you want to speak there, but what can you bring for them? So it has to be a win-win. So, I always lead with give up front. Will someone sometimes maybe take advantage and it wasn't the best scenario? Fine. I'd rather err on that side than walk around and be some greedy person, right? It's fine. It all works out in the wash. So let's say, I'm trying to think of one. This yoga studio in the beginning had moms. They were one of the few that had childcare, and so I was doing something kid oriented and mom oriented, and they wanted me to come and present on like holistic eating for kids, and I made a handout on like kid healthy snacks and things, and I did a short presentation, and they were thrilled, right? And then that introduced me to some people, and you could offer to have a conversation with them or a no charge consult or something like that. But if I had taken that kid mom conversation and gone to maybe, I don't know, like maybe an executive function where everyone was in their early 20s, that's the wrong audience. So those are the things you want to think about. All right, I think I got through all the questions in chat. Yay, set up a call. I love talking to you guys, especially some of you that like I know and I haven't talked to for a while. I want to see where you're at. And we just get better all the time. Like I'm thinking of someone I'd worked with before and some things I'm going to show them now and surprise them. If I learn something good, I'm going to turn around and teach it to someone else. You betcha. That's my puppy. All right. Any other last questions before I sign off? No problem, Nancy. I'm happy to help. Just go out there and rock it and be awesome. All right. Bye, everyone. Take care. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend.